In Cape Town, you can stand in one spot and see two worlds: the affluent suburb of Strand and just meters away, the township of Nomzamo. Manicured lawns and ocean views on one side, corrugated iron shacks and unpaved roads on the other. The proximity is shocking, separated by a single road, yet divided by history. This isn't accidental. It's the legacy of a system designed to keep people apart. In Strand, privilege and access are inherited. In Nomzamo, exclusion is the norm. These divisions are everywhere in South Africa. Sandton and Alexandra and Johannesburg, separated by a highway. The country is full of invisible walls where race still shapes where you live and what you can achieve. It's not about personal choice. It's about a history that gave one group the best land and pushed others to the margins. These margins were placed far from jobs, schools, and hospitals, by design. The lines on the map, drawn long ago, still dictate opportunity and future. South African cities were planned this way. The economy was structured this way. To understand why a street can divide two universes, you have to look at how the country was built, and for whom. The story of modern South Africa is a house built on a crooked foundation, and everyone is still living in it. The contrast is a daily, living reminder of a divided past that shapes the present. Segregation in South Africa didn't start with apartheid in 1948, it began centuries earlier. The Dutch and then the British built a society with Europeans on top and everyone else at the bottom. Laws and boundaries were created to control and separate, not just as attitudes but as policy. The British formalized these divisions, controlling where non-white people could live and work. Black South Africans became temporary visitors in the white economy, welcome to work, but not to stay. Land and resources were reserved for the white minority. Everyone else was pushed off ancestral lands. This was a deliberate strategy to create a dependent labor force and deny independence. By the time apartheid was introduced, segregation was already deeply rooted. Apartheid simply took existing systems and made them nationwide, rigid, and brutally enforced. The problem is deeper than one party or era, it's woven into the country's creation. Understanding this history is crucial to understanding today's divisions. The discovery of diamonds and gold in the late 1800s transformed South Africa. Railroads were built to move wealth to the coast, but only through white-controlled areas. Black communities were bypassed, cut off from economic opportunity. No railroads meant no access to jobs, markets, or development. A cycle of poverty enforced by geography. The Natives Land Act of 1913 made things worse, restricting black land ownership to just 8% of the country. Black South Africans, the majority, were dispossessed and trapped in impoverished reserves. The combination of railroads and land laws created economic corridors for whites and isolation for everyone else. Segregation wasn't just about benches or buses, it was about designing a country to funnel wealth to one group. The railroads carried more than gold. They carried a future of prosperity for some and poverty for others. This is the architecture of segregation in action. The legacy of these choices is still visible in the landscape today. Economic opportunity was mapped out, and mapped away from millions. The tracks of the past still shape the routes of the present. District 6 in Cape Town was once a vibrant mixed community. Black, white, colored, Indian, all living side by side. It was living proof that a multiracial society could work. But in 1966, the apartheid government declared it a whites-only area under the Group Areas Act. The official excuse was slum clearance, but the real goal was to destroy integration. Over 60,000 people were forcibly removed, their homes bulldozed, their community shattered. Families were dumped in segregated, barren townships far from the city and their livelihoods. The government didn't just move people, it erased a culture and a way of life. District 6 became a windswept wasteland, a monument to apartheid's cruelty. The trauma of forced removal still echoes through generations. The story of District 6 is about more than lost buildings. It's about the deliberate destruction of community to enforce an ideology. The empty land remains a painful reminder of what was lost. The scars are physical, emotional, and generational. District 6 stands as a symbol of the cost of division. When the National Party took power in 1948, they set out to perfect segregation, calling it apartheid. Over 140 laws were passed to control every aspect of life, marriage, work, education, even park benches. The Population Registration Act classified everyone by race, determining your entire future. The Group Areas Act assigned every inch of land to a racial group, best areas for whites, peripheries for everyone else. Black South Africans were forced to carry passbooks, restricting their movement and making them foreigners in their own country. Townships were built far from city centers, deliberately underdeveloped and lacking basic services. The urban landscape became a tool of oppression: long commutes, poor conditions, constant surveillance. Apartheid wasn't just racist laws, it was a total system for engineering a divided society. The design was systematic, bureaucratic, and brutally effective. The legacy of this blueprint still shapes South Africa's cities today. 1994 brought hope. Apartheid ended, Nelson Mandela was freed, and all South Africans could finally vote. Oppressive laws were dismantled, and people were free to live and work where they chose. Millions moved from rural homelands and townships to cities, seeking opportunity. The government built millions of new houses and expanded access to services. But the fastest, cheapest land was still on the city outskirts. The same places apartheid had pushed black South Africans. New townships rose beside old ones, far from jobs and city centers. The legal walls fell, but the physical and economic barriers remained. Most black South Africans still lived on the margins, facing long, costly commutes. The map of the cities changed little, even as the laws did. The dream of the Rainbow Nation was real, but the geography of division persisted. Progress was made, but the foundation was still crooked. The challenge was, and is, how to build a new society on an old map. The struggle for true integration continues. Today, the ghost of apartheid's map still haunts South Africa's cities. Cape Town's city center and wealthy suburbs remain mostly white and expensive. Black and colored residents are concentrated in sprawling townships on the Cape Flats. Every morning, hundreds of thousands endure long, difficult commutes to work in the city. This spatial divide drains time, money, and quality of life, creating what experts call spatial inequality. Living on the periphery means limited access to good schools, hospitals, and safe spaces. Property prices and transport costs are invisible walls, keeping people separated. District 6, still largely empty, is a symbol of slow progress and unresolved restitution. The promise of return remains unfulfilled for most former residents. Undoing the legacy of apartheid is a slow, difficult process. The city's divisions are no longer enforced by law, but by economics and geography. The numbers reveal the depth of South Africa's segregation. In Cape Town, 60% of black residents live in townships on the city's edge. Over 60,000 people were removed from District 6. Nationwide, 3.5 million were forcibly relocated under apartheid. These removals destroyed social networks, livelihoods, and cultural heritage. South Africa remains one of the world's most unequal countries. Wealth and opportunity still follow racial lines. White South Africans, less than 10% of the population, hold a disproportionate share of land and wealth. Poverty and unemployment are far higher for black South Africans. Economic inequality fuels ongoing spatial segregation. The 1913 Natives Land Act's legacy is still visible. Land ownership remains heavily skewed. Land reform has been slow and often ineffective. The numbers are proof of a system designed for division. The work of undoing this legacy is far from finished. Statistics tell the story of a country still struggling to heal. How do you fix a problem built into the landscape? Changing laws isn't enough. Ending segregation means rethinking city planning and who cities are for. It's about access to opportunity, not just a roof over your head. Prime urban land can't be reserved for luxury. Cities must prioritize affordable, integrated housing in central areas. District 6 should be a model for righting historical wrongs, not a goldmine for developers. Public transport is key. Fast, safe, affordable connections can shrink the distance between townships and opportunity. The commute is a tax on the poor. Better transport can help stitch the city together. Healing segregation's scars requires a new social contract and a commitment to real justice. The privileged must recognize their comfort is built on a system that excluded others. The road is long, but a united South Africa, where your address doesn't determine your destiny, is the only future worth building.